I think that this business is a lot about relationships. I mean, the people that I've met and worked with, they're amazing. And, I go to them for their amazing professional skills, whereas like I'm strong in certain areas and they're much stronger in those areas that I look to them for. So why would I, try and get through this, and fake my way through something when I know I can go to the masters and get those pieces made.
A quick interruption to remind you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better. Hey, it's Ari. Welcome to another episode of the Made in America podcast. Today, I'm with Russell Soder, Managing Director of Pilates Lineage. So excited to have Russell on, another EAMA member. Can't wait to hear his story. Russell, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me, Ari.
Listen, it's my pleasure, and it is the Made in America podcast. Yes. So we start off with the same two questions, Russell. What do you make, and why do you make it?
Well, we make classical Pilates equipment. It's sort of a niche industry, and we cater to teachers and private Pilates people who may have equipment in their homes or studios across the country and the world. We basically make our products to specification of Joseph Pilates' original intentions. So basically, all of the things that we make, we make from the original intentions, the pure sort of Joseph Pilates style. And that's what we make.
Right. And what's the why?
And why we make it, I've been in the Pilates world now for about 15 years. I got into it originally through a man named Michael Salazar out in Los Angeles. He's the Pilates guy. And we went around fixing Pilates equipment all over the place, up and down the West Coast, and got really good at it. And so I really started thinking about manufacturing someday my own Pilates equipment. We have a lot of friends in the industry, and what we like to do is we like to take feedback from teachers and make things even stronger and better, more connected.
So, I think that's really cool. And there's so much history about Pilates that I didn't know. And I was telling you before the show that I did some history reading to find out a little bit about it. And I think it'd be fun for the audience to hear about that. But before we get to kind of that history and what the Pilates equipment is, you brought some. We even get to do a little sample on the show, which is kind of exciting. But before we kind of get to all that, I'm always really interested to hear people's like kind of personal story and how they came to manufacturing. For whatever reason, in the most recent last 20 to 40 years, not a lot of people envisioned or dreamed of getting into manufacturing. And so their road to it was a bit circuitous. You're no exception. You were an actor at one time. Maybe you could just sort of talk about your journey into manufacturing and how you developed a passion for making things.
Sure. I was... It started in Los Angeles. I was living there and with my wife, Angela Goethals, who's also our creative director now. And living in Los Angeles, we were both actors. And so I would be doing either stage plays or television, film. One of these particular jobs, it was a stage play at the Getty Villa, and I had run into this guy named Michael Salazar. He was one of the other actors. And every time he was backstage, I was like, what are you doing on your computer all the time? And he's like, oh, this is my job. I said, so what is it? And he told me, well, I fix and maintain Pilates equipment. And I was like, Pilates equipment? I said, I've heard of Pilates, but I thought it was kind of like, you get down on the ground and on the mat. And he said, no, check this out. And I looked at all these pictures he had, and it looked like some kind of device of torture and all these crazy, sort of machines. And I said, wow, that's amazing. And I said, so you go and you fix all this stuff? And he said, yeah. I said, well, geez, let me know if you ever need, someone to help out. It's as an actor, you always need another job. So Lo and behold, a few months later, he gave me a call, and I started working with him for a company called the Pilates Guy, and we traveled up and down the West Coast, fixing equipment.
Had you always been kind of like a tinkerer? I mean, we didn't really get to it, but I know that you, even though the story sort of that we're talking about starts in Los Angeles, your life story actually starts in Rhode Island.
True. Very true.
And so, I mean, back when you were growing up, I mean, was there manufacturing in your family? Was there like working with your hands in your family? Was it just something you did? How did you?
Yeah, my grandfather was into, I guess you could say, tinkering, big time tinkering. But he actually went to Brown and got a degree in engineering, and he was designing arcade games for a while. So not the electronics, but also the boxes and the buttons and how those things correspond with the inner electronics. So as a kid, I would sort of get to go by and see where he was working. And I don't know if that's where I got the bite.
The bug was in there.
The bug,
By the way, people who are listening might not even know about this time, but back in the day, arcades used to have games that were like really more mechanical than electronic, right? Before you had video games, even before pinball, but certainly around that time, there was all different kind of games that use all different kinds of mechanical contraptions and different size metal balls and springs that would just do all the gaming. Sounds like your grandfather was into that.
Absolutely, yeah, and that was, he was into, he got into that, and I got to see a lot of it. We had a pachinko machine in our house, things like that he had made. And, so I always kind of had a sort of like, I can't wait to fix things. I mean, growing up, it was like skateboard and bike technology all the time. We were always trying to do something with our bikes to make them, faster or,
jump higher, land better.
Yeah.
Nothing like a good BMX dirt ramp build to keep you busy in the summer. So you start working on the Pilates equipment. It sounds like you must have enjoyed it, like kind of right from the beginning. It really spoke to you.
I did. Yeah, it was really neat. There was a sort of it was. One of the things that was great was we would go to a studio, and they were always so happy to see us, because what happens after a while is your Pilates equipment starts talking to you after a while when it's not properly lubricated and taken care of. So it's like when we would show up, they were always so happy to see us. I was like, well, this is a great job to have. It was working with Michael and traveling around. You got to travel a bunch, and we were the only people at the time that did it too. How many people have Pilates studios out there that need these service? It's
so what made you do the switch from sort of West Coast repair guy on the road to East Coast manufacturing of Pilates equipment?
Yeah. Well, we were out in LA and thinking about having children, and we thought, well, do we want to have our kids in LA or New England, where we might be able to afford schools? So that was one of the original factors. Then I got a job in New York as an actor, and so we traveled back to New York, and we just rented our house in LA for a while, and then we, I went on this job. It was actually in China, so I went to China for a time, and when I got back, of course, I had no job anymore. That's one of the things about an actor. You get back and there's no job, and it's like, well, what am I going to do? Okay, and it was at that moment that I got a phone call from David Rosenkrantz, the owner of Grotz Industries, which is one of the leading manufacturers of classical Pilates equipment in the world. And he asked me if I would come work with them, and I said, sure. Yeah, sounds great. I mean, I had all of this knowledge, from the past, and I was like, what am I going to do with all of that knowledge? Just sitting there. And turned out I knew people's equipment better than they did, because in the field there's nothing like knowing how things work and the ins and outs of things, and seeing it in motion and repairing it. So. Sure.
So you're working for gives you the call. Do you want to work for him?
He gives me the call, and I started work there. They started me off at Grotz as the sales manager for a year because they needed to fill a spot, and I love that. I'm pretty good with people on the phone, and I also knew a lot of the people from visiting their studios and fixing their equipment. Right. So So did that for a time, and then after the first year, we moved from New York to Philadelphia. And in that move, when we opened up, I became the technical manager, and from there I worked with the with all of the managers, the management team, and the designers, and basically my big areas were safety and some design, and making sure quality was 100%.
Sure. So you're working on that, and you're in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. We still haven't figured out how did we end up with a company in southeastern, southwestern Rhode Island, southeastern Connecticut.
We're gearing up for it, Ari. Here we go. So it was like we're in Philadelphia for a couple of years. At that time, we had one daughter, and then we had one on the way, and we had some things happen, for us in New England, and we thought that it was time to move on from Grotz, and we actually moved to Martha's Vineyard for a while, and I started. Once there, I started, really hankering for that, use of my hands again and making things. So I started making smaller pieces for the Pilates community. And that's when I got involved with Kathy Ross Nash, who is an amazing teacher, one of the finest in the world. And we started working on a foot corrector for the industry, something that was different than had been out there. And we made a different arch on the foot pedal. And so from there, I started making different pieces, one by one, all by hand, all locally sourced materials. And that's how it started out.
It just grew from there, and you moved from Martha's Vineyard.
Yep.
Went to Connecticut and sort of blew it up. And you've mentioned sort of like this classic Pilates, and I think sort of interesting. You're making these products for a pretty niche market that seems really passionate about what they do, right? I mean, people that probably do Pilates probably pretty into it. I would think.
Absolutely, yeah. Our clients are very particular when it comes to their equipment, and it's a big investment too. The pieces that we make will certainly stand the test of time. We don't use any plastic pieces in our construction. It's all aluminum, steel, and hardwoods. So
before we kind of get in, I want you to sort of work through this little sample. Tell me what these things are on the table here. But before we get to that, just really briefly, I think it'd be helpful for people that don't know, like, what is Pilates? I mean, I didn't actually know till we talked that Pilates was the last name of the guy that invented it. So Joseph Pilates, I think, right?
Yes.
So maybe just a quick primer, like, what is Pilates?
Yeah, I think to sum that up, I mean, Pilates became an exercise that always originates from your core outward. When Joseph Pilates first started out, he was using spring tension and sort of amplifying this origin of your core. So there are many different pieces, one of them being the reformer. And the reformer is like an 8-foot bed that you lie down on that has a carriage on it with wheels that goes up and down a track, and that's connected with 4 springs, sometimes 5. And all of those springs are, the tension that you use, and it's all core activation, and every movement originates there and goes out, to the ends of your fingertips, no matter what you're doing. So I'd say that core strengthening would be the biggest
part of Pilates.
The biggest facet of Pilates,
Yeah, I mean, it's just really interesting. I mean, here's this guy who was born in like the late 1800s, like 1883 or something like that, lived till the late 60s, 1960s. And, he was, I guess what I gathered was he was really passionate about like physical exercise, stuff that to us, I think now in this day and age seems pretty normal, but wasn't, I guess, very widespread, this sort of daily exercise. And it seems like it's all centered around equipment. And not weightlifting, but around using sort of tensions.
Yes.
And so, I mean, you mentioned like a foot corrector. I mean, by the way, for people that don't know it, go to the Pilates Lineage site and you can look at some of the stuff. And when you don't know what it is, it does look a little bit like possibly torture equipment if you don't use it correctly. But like, sort of, what's the concept? Like, what does a foot corrector do for me? My foot's broken, I use it. Like, what is the whole point of that?
Yeah, when Joseph Pilates first came out with the foot corrector, he used it for many different things. His idea was to help the everyday working man, and it turned into many other things. It turned into helping dancers, ballet dancers too. But anyone who needed sort of restructuring of their feet, arms, hands, he was really good. If you look back on it, he was probably one of the most amazing PTs, physical therapists, of yesteryear.
It does feel like that. It's almost like some combination of like physical therapy, yoga, exercise, kind of working out. It's funny, we were talking, everyone probably knows who Tom Brady is, but, sort of like that TB12 method, right? If you ever read his book, he's always like talking about, getting kind of more away from the weights, using like resistance training, core exercises. It seems very Pilates-esque, actually.
Absolutely, yeah. And, back in the he was also a boxer. He was an amazing boxer. Yeah, I don't know if you got to that point.
I did not.
But he came up with different things to strengthen boxers in a way that you normally wouldn't think of, and not just their cores, because he would work out boxers. On we have an actual piece called the resistor that comes out from the wall, and it's basically two springs that come out, and you can use your arms in extension. And he also came up with a neck stretcher, which you actually put a strap around your head and you clip it to a piece, and there's a spring in the middle, and you would actually physically move your head back and around. And what that would do is that would strengthen their necks, the boxers' necks, so that they wouldn't get knocked out as easily.
Oh, so when you take a punch, you have like a stronger neck.
Exactly, you have a stronger base.
Very interesting. Yeah, listen, I did not read about the boxing. I did, however, get to the point that he was very good physical shape all the way up to his death, and was very well known for walking around in just his gym exercise shorts, which is like a tight Speedo in today's day and age, including walking around the streets of New York City in just those workout shorts.
Absolutely, and no shoes, and usually a cigar.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think much to people out there who don't always know about exercising, he really enjoyed a cigar and a good alcoholic beverage.
Absolutely,
is what I understand.
He did.
So
Absolutely.
work hard, play hard.
That's it.
So just quickly, maybe you could just talk about we have three pieces that you brought with you on the table, and for people like me who listen and don't watch this show, I'll try and describe them, or maybe you can as you go. But maybe talk about this one first. Looks like there are two different ones, right? Those two are dupes.
Yes, those are the duplicates.
All right, so let's talk about the one that's not a duplicate. What is this guy here?
So that is called the toe corrector, and Joseph Pilates actually invented that. Back in the early 1900s. That is a piece where you would put the loops onto your big toes.
So for people that are like listening, it's two leather loops that are attached with metal to a diamond with a spring in the middle. So you sort of like pull the diamond into it at the corner, or the middle pieces, and it stretches with tension.
Exactly.
So you put your big toe in
your big toes in there. Yep. And you would actually rock your feet out slowly. And it does everything from cure bunions to actually work all the way into your pelvis and your pelvic floor. It really is an amazing tool.
So this is the exercise, just where I have my two thumbs, you just put your big toes in.
Exactly. You fan your toes out, the rest of your toes out. And it's quite an amazing device.
Huh. You guys make this?
We do. Yeah, we make that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And what are these two in the middle of the table?
These are called hand tensometers, and they're actually, if you put your thumb, and we could start with the pointer finger in from the back. Basically, you're going to hold this out.
So, by the way, for people again that can't see,
they can't see
the finger corrector looks a lot like the toe corrector, just obviously closer together because you can one hand instead of 2 feet. And you got again those two loops. There's a diamond with a spring in the middle. So when I loop my fingers in and I try and like kind of pinch them together, like if you pinch your pointer finger and your thumb together, it's pulling the diamond together, which stretches the spring. And I'm definitely feeling. You can sort of feel the tension all the way through your elbow, all the way down back to your elbow, maybe even a little beyond that.
Yeah, even back to your scapula.
Yeah, your scapula, yeah.
Yep. So basically you would start with the pointer finger, and then you'd go to your middle finger, And the idea is you want to get it to where you're not rocking back and forth or anything like that. You're just strengthening each finger independently. I mean, you'll see things on the market which you just for grip strength, and you'll just crush things.
Yeah, everyone's seen one of those grippers, right? You kind of hold your whole fist in it, and it's got a spring, and you sort of squeeze it together.
Exactly. Well, this is like I said. I mean, he made this years and years ago. This technology, but it actually calls out each and every tendon, independently.
It sure does.
Yeah. So it's quite the. So I'll we sell.
It's very hard to squeeze together with your pinky. I mean,
when you get to the pinky,
the pinky is struggling.
Yeah. It is.
Apparently, I need to bring this home and exercise my pinky muscles.
That is for you.
Is it? Oh, look at that!
Course,
a gift. Nice. So you don't design. So these are not inventions. That your design.
Yeah, we designed, the mechanical design is maybe a little bit different, but the technology is the same as Joseph Pilates had. We actually make one that is the exact replica of the one that Joe had. And
really?
Yeah, and we and also the toe corrector. Yeah, we work with Sean Gallagher from New York Pilates, and he actually has worked with us and let us take some of the archives and actually reenact pieces, and it's quite amazing, and we're very lucky to work with Sean in that way. Because
that's really cool. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit kind of business side of the manufacturing business a little bit, which is, so you've got a limited set of products, right? Although I guess maybe you can keep innovating, but sort of like, what's your sort of go-to-market strategy on, making classical Pilates equipment, right? Like to your own point earlier, you're trying to make equipment that's really as classical. We didn't really get into this, by the way, and people who know Pilates will know this. I didn't, learned it. There's sort of different flavors of Pilates, and the classical, maybe traditional, the more kind of originalist Pilates is what you make the equipment for.
Yes, sir.
And so you're really focused on like I was going to say the truth. Maybe that's not the right way to say it, but sort of like the core, sort of Joseph Pilates stuff, not the more experimental or out there stuff. And so that seems like from a business standpoint, sort of limits what you can make. So how do you think about, making stuff and standing out? Like how does Lineage stand out in a Pilates market?
Yeah. Well, in the Pilates market, I mean, you will have teachers who are, and students who are looking for, the finest made apparatus you can get. And I think that's where we differ from a lot of the everything that we make is made by hand, or some of the things we'll cut originally on CNC, but then it's hand sanded, and it's made to stand the test of time. And these things you could, change the spring every couple of years and pass it down from generation to generation if you wanted to. And I think that's appreciated by a lot of our clientele. And but for the most part, it is staying within sort of the original intentions of Joseph Pilates.
And so what's the kind of go-to-market strategy when you think about, just sort of like classic business stuff, right? Like differentiation, clearly, well, actually, maybe I'll ask it instead of assuming. One of the things that we talk about a lot with, manufacturers is that when they have products, right? So let me actually take one step back, right? There's manufacturers that say like job shops or make components for other people's stuff,
sure,
which is not what you guys do. And then there's people that make their own products, which you do, and then some of them kind of maybe invent something new, and others have their own take on something that's maybe more like classical, right? Which is more, I think, in line with what you guys do, which puts some sort of pressure, I think, on go-to-market strategy and how do you stand out in the market. Certainly quality sounds like a differentiator for you guys.
Yeah.
How else do you guys think about that you're different and that you kind of go to market and serve a need?
Well, I think it's the sort of business model we have. I mean, we sort of look for this synergy between teachers, students, and the mechanics and the artistry of our equipment. I mean, if you look at our stuff, it's pretty much, it almost is, and people have said it's like a work of art almost. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what Joseph Pilates made too, and it was, it can be bulky, it can be, but the actual purpose of this piece is 100%, made to represent what he had in mind when he was doing his original workouts. There are certain things that you can see on the market that will not engage your core as well as some of the things that we make, for instance, that will, because they are made at the dimensions they're made, we can find that sweet spot and really be able to talk kind of through the ages, through Joseph's original work.
And as you guys are building up the business, how do you get people to know about you? How do you get, who's out there telling the story of Pilates Lineage, and how do you get people to know about it?
Yeah, it was totally organic that way. I mean, we started off with the, our business model was start simple, start with the smaller pieces and make them as perfect as we could. And so we worked with a lot of people, to make that happen. And as we did, the followers of these teachers, these amazing teachers, would, kind of flock to buy our pieces just based on that. And I think, I was talking about that synergy. I mean, kind of reaching back, we get to explore the dynamic of Joe's classical designs as it applies to our modern day, world. And so, to do that, it was mostly by listening to our clients and listening to the teachers, the Pilates teachers in the world, who would talk to us. And, that basically...
Do you do that kind of more informally? Do you guys have kind of focus groups that you deal with? Or is it just more one-to-one communication? Like, how do you get that feedback loop? Because that end user customer feedback loop, boy, that can be really powerful.
It is. It's so powerful. And, a lot of the people, started as friends too. And, clients, friends. And so it was really... it's tough to put a price on that, to have that kind of a relationship with someone who is amazing at their art or at their practice, giving you that sort of that feedback. And, I had times where, at one point Angela was doing a play out in California. We were living there with all the kids, and I was sending wooden pieces back and forth with Kathy Ross Nash, based on the foot corrector that we make, and just shaving off little bits and saying, well, how about this angle? And how about this angle? And she would stand on these pieces and send them back and be like, nope, it's not that. And I mean, we must have gone through 30, different things until we found it, and I think that really comes through in the work. I mean, we sell a lot of foot correctors, and it's a big piece to have in in your arsenal as a teacher, and to make it right and to have that perfect arch, it's a big deal.
Is that kind of the approach you've taken with all the stuff that you guys make? I mean, your catalog's, it's not tiny, but it's not huge either, right? Yeah. I mean, just having seen them now in person live, and you look at them online, they look like they're made with care.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, it's, the people who help us in this effort, we do a lot of local outsourcing, and we do manufacturing ourselves, but, we have a lot of people, in Connecticut and nearby Rhode Island, Cher Hertzler and David Negrelli at Mystic River Foundry. They do our plates for our foot correctors. So they do the wonderful castings that we make. We work with Mary Fitzgerald and Mike and Ed Planeta at Acme Wire too, and they do these right here.
They make this stuff we've got right here.
Exactly.
Do you find that it's been a difficult, I know we're kind of running out of time, but do you find that it's been like a difficult transition to go from acting to manufacturing?
Yeah, it's some days are better than others. I mean, that's I didn't go to school for this. I really look up to the amazing people that have been doing this their whole lives. And, we mentioned EAMA, and I got to talk to Chris Jewell and a lot of amazing manufacturers already, and
how have you found the by the way, for anyone that doesn't already know, I'm just going to say that the EAMA, EAMA is the Eastern Advanced Manufacturers Alliance, and it's a group really centered obviously in Eastern Connecticut, but really a very active group that came together a lot around workforce and the great stuff they've been doing for manufacturing workforce development in Eastern Connecticut, and it's really become a great group that does a lot of sharing experience, share training, site visits to each other's places, happy hours and social stuff. We just actually had a happy hour for the first time post-pandemic and not that long ago. So it's a great group, and it sounds like it's been really rewarding for you.
Absolutely has. Yeah. I mean, I eat that stuff up. It's great to be in an atmosphere and be able to just talk shop literally, with
literally. Yeah. Is there anything
people.
that's surprising that you think the audience might find interesting of either stuff that you found from acting that's actually turned out to be really helpful in your manufacturing journey?
Yeah, I would have to say, I mean, the sheer artistry of it. I mean, I really tend to be more of like an artisan craftsman, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at things, if you ever see any of my drawings, I mean, they're done by I do them by hand. I don't use CAD or anything. So, but I would say more of, anything like sort of, it's like when I see things, or if I'm trying to improve something, it's always sort of through an outlet of art, an artistic outlet. And I think that's where I would kind of fall back on, being an artist in the past has helped me with this.
Yeah. How about your presentation skills? I'm just curious. I mean, I've never done a play outside of, I think, elementary school. I was Puck in A Midsummer's Night's Dream. It's my only credit, by the way. Amazing. I think. Yeah, great
role.
Yeah, it's a great role, by the way. Yes. Anyway, that's a conversation for another time. But having done all the acting that you've done, especially stage acting, a lot of live presenting, I wonder if you found that useful.
Yeah, at times. At times, for sure. I mean, sometimes it makes me talk a little too much or too fast, or maybe I think that
too booming of a voice.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think it's very. It might help, on outwardly. I mean, I've always been kind of, a social being. So I think it helps in that way, probably. As far as playing a role or anything, I don't see it as that because I'm trying to be as, organic and honest as I can be.
It's actually a really good lesson right there, by the way, because I think a lot of people can view not just sales, but also running a business, talking to employees, talking to vendors or partners as putting on a show. And I think the more you put on a show versus be your authentic self, the worse it is.
Yeah. And you learn that the hard way sometimes too, and it's but I mean, I think that this business is a lot about relationships. I mean, the people that I've met and worked with, they're amazing. And, I go to them for their amazing professional skills, whereas I'm strong in certain areas and they're much stronger in those areas that I look to them for. So why would I, try and get through this, and fake my way through something when I know I can go to the masters and get those pieces made, and the final product when it comes together is going to be made up of the art and the science and everything together. So.
Oh, dude, that's a really smart takeaway. I think if people can kind of buy into that, you know what I mean? There's no extra credit for doing it yourself.
No,
it's
true,
all about getting it done and finding the right people to get done. That's awesome. Something, Russell, I think on that one point, I'm going to move to rapid fire round of questions to kind of round this thing out. This has been a really interesting conversation. You ready for some rapid fire?
I'm ready.
All right, man. Red Sox or Yankees?
Red Sox.
That's what I'm talking about. Rhode Island boy, I felt pretty good about that. Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Oh, geez. Duncan.
No COVID. When you take time off, staycation guy or exotic destination?
Staycation.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Sports car or SUV?
SUV.
Do you have a favorite business book?
How to Make Friends and Influence People.
That's a great book. If anyone has not read that, pick that one up. That's a great book.
It's a good book.
And If you had to do something, Russell, other than be the managing director at Pilates Lineage, and it could be anything in the whole wide world, what would you do?
I would just keep on performing my art. I would be an actor. I would.
Actor.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I still get to do that.
You still get to do that. I was going to say you get to live that dream.
Yeah.
It's a little bit cheating, but we'll let it go. We'll let it go. What's something, Russell, that you learned early in your life or early in your career that you think's helped springboard you to all the success that you've had?
Check things more than once. Don't just assume that something's okay after the first time. It's almost like measure twice, cut once. I mean, it's that simple, but there are so many facets to this business, to manufacturing in any way. But always make sure that you're doing it right the first time.
Yeah, check back. That's a good one. What's something that you learned later in your career, later in your life, that if you could go back and tell young Russell, and if young Russell would listen to you, it would make a real positive impact on his life?
Wow. That's a big one, Ari. I would say listen more. Yeah, listen more. You don't always have to be the talker. It's nice to be around people and just listen.
Listen and learn, man. I love it. Russell, it has been really cool having you on. I appreciate you taking the time. I learned a ton about Pilates just along the way, which I super appreciate. So thanks a lot, man.
Thank you, Ari. It's great being here.
My pleasure.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by IT Direct, a CompassMSP company.
As always, thank you so much for tuning in and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a community where we can learn and grow together. Your input, feedback, and engagement is critical to making that happen. Please do comment, like, and subscribe so more and more people can hear what we're doing and join our community of growth and success. Thanks so much for tuning in. Talk to you again soon.